We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Thursday. Had a busy day yesterday, so I needed some help today. And as we've been doing every week, we've got Old Soul with us. So, Old Soul, welcome back. You're a sight for sore eyes, to use an old phrase.
Hey, it's nice to be here. I'm happy.
You're happy. You're in Las Vegas. It's cold. I'm in Minnesota. It's cold. I want to bring something up. I don't know if he listens to the podcast, so I may have to do it. But my wife and I just decided she was off. We decided to do nothing today. So we got in the car,
Yeah.
drove about an hour and a half, and um, went to a casino in kind of a rural area outside of where we are, about an hour and a half away. And we go there all the time, just for a couple of hours just to get away from shit. And we did that. And I'm walking around. And as I'm walking by the set of uh, slot machines, here's a guy. He's got gloves on. He's wrapped up in his coat real tight because it's really cold here. He's got a medical mask across his face.
hmm
And as I'm walking by, I'm thinking, well, this guy's trying to protect himself. God bless him. And as I'm
Right.
walking by, he yells out to me. He goes, "Hey, you're on TikTok." I go, "Yeah, I am." He says, "I listen to you every day. I follow you.
Oh,
I support almost everything you say." I go, almost, motherfucker. But we were talking back and forth, and I put out my hand to shake his hand. He goes, "Oh no, I'm a germaphobe." So he put out his elbow. So I put out my elbow, and we touched elbows, and we talked briefly, and then I went on my way to do it. So his name was Sam. He's from Fairmont, Minnesota. So if Sam's listening to the show, thanks for reaching out to me in the casino. Hopefully you won a little bit, and I did my best not to pass along any germs. He said he
hi,
was a
Sam.
germaphobe. Sam, hi Sam. Anyway.
Hopefully, he didn't have. I don't know if you've seen those images of Trump's hands. So
Oh, yeah,
maybe
what
he
is
didn't have
that?
any. Well, I was looking at it and I was seeing all this weird stuff going on. People were saying it was syphilis and a bunch of stuff. To me, it looked like psoriasis. And with psoriasis, that is you can have stress can trigger a breakout.
Oh,
And so when I seen his hands, I was like, oh, that must be some type of psoriasis he has going on. To me, that's what it looks like. And I'm like, if he's stressed out and he has psoriasis, you could see it on their hands, their arms, sometimes like their necks, their faces, just depending on the situation. But to me, that's what it looked like. I didn't think anything like creepy or anything like that. I just thought that he was having a breakout from stress. That's all.
well, for those folks that didn't see it, some people were picking it out on TikTok, and it was when he was in New York for this case, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But he was holding his hand up like this, and you could see on his forefinger and on the upper part of his palm and on his thumb,
Mhm.
there were some red marks, some kind of lesion or something like that. It could be psoriasis. I don't know what he'd be stressed about, but yeah, that's possible. It could be almost anything. Of course, everybody takes the opportunity to call it any number of things, given, Donald's behavior. Got to be careful
Yeah.
what you're grabbing, who you're grabbing, or try to keep the fecal matter off your hands. Everybody's going all different ways with it. I don't know what it is. I don't care it is. The only thing I hope for him with that particular situation on his hand, I hope it's fatal.
Mhm.
I hope it's
Oh,
terminal.
I
Oh,
see this. Someone say that it looked like, and I'm like, these people are coming up with whole stories about what happened to this man's hand.
yeah.
They was like, oh, maybe he fell and he went to catch himself on some glass, and it was like all this weird stories. So I'm like, you should be somewhere writing a book because how you get a whole story off just a few little notches on his hand? But
Well, when I was looking at it, it almost looked like burns. Like the
mhm.
dumb fuck grabbed a frying pan or some shit, like a little kid would do. I don't know what it is. I don't really care. And you talk about people in the hospital. We heard a report that Chuck Grassley, who's a
Mhm.
senator from Iowa, he's in the hospital with an infection. Now, that doesn't sound like a big deal, but the motherfucker's 90 years old. A 90-year-old with an infection, and he's in the hospital. That could be some serious shit. Again, fingers crossed, because I'm not a fan of Chuck Grassley. Every time I say something like that, my wife says, You're going to go to hell for that. You're creating bad karma. I go, no, these are bad fucking people. It's not bad to wish bad on bad people. That's just my theory. I know you're more compassionate and a better person than I am without question. So you probably have a different attitude about it, but I'll be the asshole here today. That's kind of my role on the Rational Boomer podcast.
I'll just look forward to reading the obituaries. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You know, last time you were on, you were talking about a situation you had in your own home. For those that remember, Old Soul works with a national organization where women who need medical attention, abortion attention, and live in a state where it's illegal, she will bring people into her home and help take care of them. Um, so they can get the medical care they need in Nevada, which is a state you can get those kinds of services. Now, when we talked in the last time, you had a situation where a young woman was in there in your home, and it was taking longer than it normally would for a couple of reasons. Maybe you can update us on what ended up happening with that.
Yeah, she got her follow-up visit, which was good. She's still here, but tomorrow she's getting her implant in her arm. And then after that, she's gonna go back home and then I'll get someone else. Um, but what helped her, she was like mentally struggling. Like I was really worried about her. And I was like, she even told me, she was like, sometimes when you come check on me at night, I'm not asleep, but I don't say anything. And I was really checking on her just to make sure she didn't hurt herself or anything. But what helped her was that email. Well, most of the emails after my last time I was on, but one in particular, Deb DZ, am I saying that right?
Right, Deb DZ.
Yes. So she sent an email and she was talking about when she was pregnant, how her father reacted. And when she read that, she was just like, I mean, she listened to you say that, she was just like bawling and crying. And I'm like, you okay? And she said that in her mind, she had an image that if she would have been able to carry her baby to term, it would have mended the relationship that she had with her father. So when she lost the baby, it was kind of like two losses to her. Like she lost her baby, and then she felt like her relationship to her father was like gone forever.
Right,
But it helped her realize that when she went to him and she told him her situation and he didn't embrace her or, try to be her father in that moment. And then when she came to him and told her the medical problems that she was having and that his first grandchild, who was getting ready to lose that, he wasn't there at that moment. He wasn't there for her when she was here and in the hospital. The image that she had of him when you read that email, it just made her realize that Deb's father was the type of father that would have stepped up and been there for her child. No matter what she did, no matter what the situation was, her father was just not going to be that person. So even though it's not easy, that fantasy that she had built up in her head about them reuniting and all of that, it just kind of helped her kind of like lift that burden off of her shoulder
right.
that is not it wasn't going to happen whether she had the baby or not.
And it wasn't
um
her fault. It was her father
mhm.
acting badly. I mean, I think
Yeah,
that's
and she
that's one of the things I knew when I was young, and I'm sure she's maybe going through the same thing. When your father may be not the best person in the world,
mhm,
but that's all you know as a father. When you go out
yeah,
and meet other fathers, that happened to me. I'd run into other fathers, and I thought they were all just like my dad. And when I realized they weren't, I'm going, holy fuck, this is a whole new
mhm,
world. So I'm sure she was amazed that a father who maybe had some of the same beliefs that her father had made her a priority, which is what a good
yeah.
parent should do over
Yeah,
anything
it
your
helped her
kids do.
yeah, it helped her, like, so much just to realize that there was n like, if he was gonna step up, he would've stepped up in the beginning
Right.
and not even, like, now after what she's gone through, he's still not able to be there. But that email, it made her cry a lot, but once she got it out, she just kinda said she just realized that, that that is what a father would do, and that's not who her father is, and she has to accept that and figure out a way to deal with that and then like move on from it. She still has like a lot of guilt to where if
Hmm.
I wouldn't have got pregnant in the first place, I wouldn't be in a situation, it wouldn't be happening. She still has a lot of that type of guilt, but as far as like her relationship with her father, it seems like it's going to be easier for her to work through that. And even the other emails too, when they were saying, oh, well, the father is not surprising. Like, it's not surprising that a father would act like that. And it was like a couple of other ones that had a similar tone. It let her know that it's not her. It's her father, and there are other men out there that's like her father. So
Right.
it's not like she did anything wrong or she's some type of anomaly in that way to make her father not want to embrace her the way that he should. But it like those emails helped her out so much. But that one with Deb, it helped her out so much, like mentally, just okay, I realize what a father should do or what he should have done, but he didn't do that. And she kind of had like a hope in her head that he would, but after you read that, she kind of realized that's not who her father is, and she needs to learn how to deal with that and accept that, and then move on forward.
Well, kudos to Deb for the advice and the story. It's a
Mhm.
compelling story. And for those that don't remember the story, I'll put it in a compact form. Basically, Deb was young, like this young woman was. She got pregnant. Her father was also, whether religiously or whatever, was against it and spoke out about it all the time. But when it became his daughter, he set that all aside and then gave her
Yep.
the choices and said he would support her. And that was a wonderful story to hear. A man can set aside his beliefs or what he thinks is right because he's going to focus on his daughter. And I will tell
Yeah.
you this as a parent, you can probably attest to this too as a parent. You can have your religious beliefs, your financial situations, your businesses, your friends, your neighbors, but no matter what happens, your child has to be the priority in every
Yep.
situation. They have to be the priority. Don't tell me what the Bible says. Tell me what you're going to do for your child. And a lot of people just aren't willing to do that. And
Yeah.
I think part of it is a guy like this that was with this woman who says, "Well, God says this, so whatever happens, happens." I almost get the impression that this is a guy who's in a situation he doesn't know what to do with it, so he just says, "Let God handle it. I don't want to have the stress of trying to make decisions or help out." It's a lazy way to do it, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think that for some overly religious zealots,
Yeah,
religion and God is like such an easy scapegoat for them.
it's a crutch.
When they don't have to, yeah, when they don't want to explain something or when they can't explain something, it's such an easy scapegoat. Um, and then like you said, also it's pretty lazy because I mean, it takes a lot when you expect a certain thing from your children and then they don't have those aspirations or they don't fit into that mold that you build for them. And you just have to accept your children for who they are. And you have to accept their mistakes and help them work through that too, which is a lot for a parent. But for most of us, even like for me, when I didn't know what to do, sometimes I would just tell my daughter, hey, I don't know. I didn't have a mother. I don't like what you're dealing with right now. I don't know, but we will figure it out.
Right,
Like
right.
we'll figure it out. And we would figure it out and we would get through it. But I didn't say, oh, baby, we got to pray on it because sometimes you have to act. There's things that need to be done. Just saying, oh, just pray on it and scooting her away, that wouldn't help her with some of her situations.
Yeah,
Um,
you can pray on things, but that doesn't mean you don't do anything. I told my
right.
kids, I've always told my kids this. I said that this is life, and you're going to be in bad situations, and you're going to have some hard decisions to make.
Yeah.
But you're always better making the decision as opposed to not making the decision. I said, you're better off making the wrong decision than making no decision. And the reason for that
Yeah.
is at least you're progressing. Okay, you made the wrong decision. No big deal. You spin off and you do it a different way until you hit on the right decision. But if you sit there and just kind of percolate, nothing gets fixed, nothing gets accomplished, and it all gets worse. It festers. That's what this father was basically doing. I'm not going to deal with it, so we'll let God deal with it. Well, God put us here to do some shit for ourselves too. Sure, you can
Yeah.
go for support, but you got some responsibilities, especially if you're a father. Where's her head now? I know you were concerned about her emotional state. How are you feeling about her now, just a couple of days out before she leaves?
She seems to be doing better. Her prior authorization went through, so she can have her virtual therapy. And the therapist that she matched with, and like the little questionnaire that they figure out online, they want her to do it once a week. So she was able to actually work that into her schedule. And she said, she could, I think there's like a 2 hour block in between some periods or whatever that she has.
Right.
So she's just scheduled to go back home and do that. So I was asking her, like, do you need to stay a little longer? Are you okay? And she's just like, no, she's fine. She's feeling better. But it's a process. And it seems like I was just telling her we learn that life goes on, right?
Right.
But we
Right.
don't learn it all at once. And I was telling her when my grandmother passed away, the day after her funeral, like I had relatives like packing up to go back home. And I'm like, wait a minute, we just buried her yesterday. What do you mean you're going back home? And then it was hard for me to go back to work because I didn't feel like I was like grieving all the
Right.
way.
Right.
And I still had my daughter to take care of. And it's like at that point, I had to learn that even though I'm going through something, life still goes on. There's
Right.
people that still gonna go through their daily lives. There's things that I have to do. I can't just like stop and shut down. But for her, she's learning, yeah, life does go on. But I learned it with my grandmother passing, but she's learning it with, losing a child, her family cutting her out, dealing with her father, her mother sneaking and talking to her. It's like she's learning that she has to deal with so much, but at the same time, life is still going on for everybody else around you. And in essence, you still have to do what it is that you have to do because sooner or later she does have to go back home. She does have to go to work and she does have to do the things that she needs to do while trying to figure out how to navigate this new normal for herself. And so it's just like learning that lesson in this way at that age is it's like a lot for her. So I'm just happy she's getting her therapy sessions in virtually because she did not trust in-person therapy in her state at all. And I don't blame her for that.
No, I don't
But
blame her.
luckily the doctors here, they were able to, get everything that she needs set up for her. So when she goes back home, she's gonna be okay.
So for the folks listening, when she goes home, this is going to be a hard thing for her to go back to her home in a
Hmm.
state that basically would paint a scarlet letter on this poor girl if they had their option to it. But she's not going back to stay with her parents, right? She's going
No, she
back
has a
to her
roommate.
place with a roommate, right? Well, that's
Yeah.
good. At least she'll have that separation. Does she have any sense of what's going to happen with her parents? I mean, maybe her mom will reach out because it sounds like she softened up a little bit, but dad didn't sound like he was movable at all.
No, he's not movable in any type of way. But she does have her roommate. She has her boyfriend, and she has her boyfriend's mom, who is like, she's so cool. I like her. So she does have some support. It's just like she doesn't have the support of like her church family that she has there, certain members or certain friends of that community, and she doesn't have her father's support. And then I was asking her because somebody did write and say, maybe the father will report her. And so I was asking her, is that a fear? And she just said, no, he's too embarrassed. He would never tell anybody
Right.
about that. So she's like, sometimes you ask her a question, you talk to her, and she's sitting and she's like in deep thought. She's trying to, you can tell she's processing it. But when I asked her that, she just like, no, like quick. No, he's too embarrassed. He would never tell anybody that he doesn't want like that type of shame on himself. So
Right.
she didn't have any concerns with him doing that.
Well, because with religion, then they would immediately add that shame and blame to him, and because he's all
Hmm.
about how he looks. I will say this about now being a father and a grandfather, and looking back at how you raise your kids and such, and looking at my own father when he passed away. If that father doesn't change his tune and try to establish some kind of relationship with that girl, his daughter,
Hmm.
on his deathbed, he will have many regrets, many, many regrets, and he will be sorry. I mean, that's what I tell people when you worry about all the things that are in this world that you deal with every day. When you're on your deathbed, you've only got so many things to worry about, only so many things that you have left. That's your family, your friends, and memories. That's all you got. And
Right.
if those are destroyed because of whatever behavior or whatever beliefs you had while you're in life, um, I watched. I'm not going to say who it was, but I was in a situation where somebody was dying, They were on their last days in a deathbed. And a nurse was watching this person. And this person was really restless. I mean, really restless, lashing out and groaning and making noises and moving around a lot. And
Mhm.
I said to the nurse, I said, I thought most people, when they pass away in a situation like this, it's very peaceful and they slowly just fade away. And she said, yeah, that's true,
Mhm.
mostly. But this woman was, I think, from Jamaica, and she was very spiritual. Um,
Mhm.
she said to me, but this one is now going through what they have to go through when they have a life full of regrets and
Mhm.
things that they realize now that didn't matter. They did the wrong things. They're paying for it now. Now, I don't know if that's true, but it made some sense, and it was so odd when I was watching it that I thought, man, life is not worth that. When you go out, it would be nice to go out peacefully as opposed to regretting your whole
Yeah.
life.
I think he will have regrets, and the type of person that she is, um, it's gonna be a loss on his part, and I've told her that, and she's even said things to me that lets me know that it's gonna be work, but she's gonna be okay. Because before she was thinking about, like, her future, like, career choices and stuff like that, and in her mind, it was like, "Well, when he does come around or if he comes around and the life that I've developed, is he gonna be judgmental of this? Was he's gonna think of that?" So even, like, with her studies and different just choices that she was making it as to when my dad comes back around, what is he gonna think? But now she's just kind of like, "I just have to kind of, like, do what's best for me and, like, live for me and kinda, like,
Right,
let that go." And that was, Deb's email really did make her in her head think there's nothing I can do to change him because he's not that person. He's not who her dad was. This is my dad who's a completely different person. So I just have to get that out of my head, and it's gonna take a minute because, he's in her head pretty deep. Like, she loves her
yeah,
father, but she just has to realize that's just not who he is. He's not gonna change. And if he does, then he's either gonna agree with her life or he's not, that's
right,
and I think after if you get used to him not being there after a while, then it's kind of like if he wants to come around, he has to accept you, not you needing to adjust and contort for
right,
him.
right.
So
Well,
hopefully that's how it would be, but she seems like she's gonna be okay, so I'm optimistic about her.
if he doesn't come around, she is going to be forced to learn to be more independent, probably
Mhm.
more quicker than young people her age. And it won't be easy, but she
Yeah.
will do it and it will pay off in the end. I mean, everything we go through, we learn things, and if we can keep them in our heads and use it through our life, she'll be fine if she focuses on what she can do. It's like what I've said before. Don't worry about things you can't control. You can't control your dad. He's either going to do what he does or he's going to change. But there's nothing she can do to control it. She can't convince him. So focus on yourself and do the best you can. That's all any of us can do.
Yeah, she's stronger and stubborn than she realizes because when, her father cut her off financially when she changed her field of study in school,
Wow.
what did she do? She went out, she got a job and a half. So she has a, a job and a part-time job. She got a roommate, she was doing what she needed to do. I don't think she realized that a lot of other people would have they would have not done that. So I do think she's a lot more stronger and stubborn than she realizes, and when she realizes her own strength and her own power, she's gonna do really, really good.
A lot of people would have complied, and from the way you describe her, she's going to be just fine.
Mhm.
She'll do all right. Now, when we were talking about this situation, you brought up Kamala Harris because it kind of
Oh,
ties
yeah.
in a little bit. And
Mhm.
I need you to maybe straighten me out or teach me something because I talked about this on the podcast before about Kamala Harris and how important Kamala
Yeah.
Harris is going to be in the 2024 election. With
Mhm.
Joe Biden 82 years old, a lot of people are worried about his mortality. Will he make it through another term because he's 82? And if that is a concern, then it's important that Kamala Harris is well thought of. And I've always felt like the Democrats could have done a better job of showcasing Kamala Harris, so
Yeah.
people felt comfortable with her and thought, well, if the unforeseen happens, then we'll still be good. I think it's important that people feel that way about Kamala Harris. I feel that way. I'm not worried about that. But you pointed out some things that Kamala is doing that I don't know about because I'm not young. And maybe you can explain that.
Yeah, so she just wrapped up her college tour. So she was going to different colleges. And then there was also like different rallies and things that she had. She had one when they did the overturning of Roe v. Wade, and that one was fantastic. Of course, it doesn't make the news or the headlines or,
No.
anything like that. But she's just wrapping up her college tour, but now she's getting ready to go on another tour. I believe I want to say January 22nd, which is like the anniversary of Roe. She's going to start another tour where she's going to, in particular, red states, and she's going to be talking to different women in regards to reproductive health. And she's wanting to make sure that they know how important it is not to only vote for Biden, but when she was on The View today, I saw her and she was saying it's also important that you, in these local elections, you put enough people in place so we have enough people in the House and we have enough people in the Senate to where we can codify Roe and we won't have these problems that we're having. And then I also saw, I don't know if she's going to be on tour with Kamala, but I also know that Brittany is going to be campaigning as well.
Brittany.
Um, and yeah, the one she had the miscarriage in the
Oh,
toilet.
okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
She's also going to be campaigning and telling her story about what happened and how important it is for us to be able to have rights to our own reproductive care. So she's also going to be making the rounds, telling her stories. I'm hoping that she gets an ad similar to the 12-year-old that had the ad this past previous election cycle. I can't remember which state it was, but I'm hoping that, she gets an ad as well to where people can actually feel what's going on, see what's going on. I think it's such a good idea to target these women in red states and also there's so many stories that we don't even hear about, that we don't know about.
Right.
It's
Right.
so common for this to happen. Like the women that stay with me, it is so common that it's so many stories that just are not being told. So I think it's pretty cool for her to go to these red states and bring these women on stage and let them tell their stories and share their stories just to make sure that the word is getting out there so that women in red states do know what's at stake and who they have to vote for in order to have the freedom that they want to have over their own bodies. And she did such a good job talking about this that she used to Kaylee McEnany, who used to be
Right.
Trump's press secretary on Fox. She was just like, you guys have to watch out for Kamala. She is saying this, 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 and this. She knows how important it is. She's very well spoken. She's very articulate. She's like, she gave an interview and she said abortion like 6 times, which she did. And she was just like, we need to figure out a way to combat Kamala. And she said it live on air. And I'm like, oh, so they're seeing what I'm seeing. I'm just, hoping that everybody else is seeing it too.
Well, you're not only in combat with Kamala, you're in
Mm-hmm.
combat with 75% of the country too. So good luck with that,
Yep.
motherfucker. You know,
Yep.
it's interesting. A big dumb white guy like me says, "Ah, we haven't heard much from Kamala," but what you're describing is absolutely brilliant marketing. I mean, it's more
Mm-hmm.
direct, it's more targeted to young people and people that are really interested in what the future brings in terms of abortion and healthcare by going to the colleges. She's hitting the
Mm-hmm.
Gen Zs and such, the people that are coming out for the first time to vote. That's
Yep.
brilliant to go there and then to deal with women, even in the red states that are concerned about the abortion issue. That that makes me feel kind of warm in my chest because I thought, being who I am and what I watch and what I read, I didn't hear about those things. So now to know about it, I'm feeling
Yeah.
pretty good about it. She is a smart, very articulate woman. I knew that in 2015. But
Yeah.
if that's what she's doing in targeting the young people, and she's a younger, she's more the generation we should see being president anyway, as opposed to people in their 80s, and she'll get her chance. But that's absolutely brilliant. I think it's wonderful. I think it'll
Yeah.
work
Her
too.
college tour. Yeah, her college tour, it was pretty successful. It was, letting the young people know what's at stake, and she would something common that she would tell them is, this is your America. You're creating the America that you want. Like, don't let them leave a mess. Don't let them not address climate change. Don't let them take away your rights and then you have to fight for them back. Don't let them make you go into debt trying to pay off student loan bills. Like the way she talked to young people, it was hitting home with them. They were registering, they had their ground roots projects going on. So I'm hoping that this next tour, targeting these women, will be just as successful. So even though it's not, making headlines and all that other kind of stuff, she is behind the scenes doing what it is that she should be doing. I just wish that they would showcase it a lot more, not a little bit more, but a lot more. When I seen Kayleigh McEnany talking about that, I was just like, oh, they are paying attention to what she's doing. So as much as they talk bad about her, talk down to her, they do see her as a threat. And I didn't realize that until I seen Kayleigh McEnany kind of like trying to keep it together when she was doing her segment about it.
Well, I think they are nervous about her because she is articulate, she is smart, she is successful, she is accomplished, which are all
Hmm.
things that most Republicans are not. You put her
Yeah.
in a debate with somebody like
Hmm.
whoever Donald Trump, if he's the nominee or whoever the nominee is, if they have a presidential debate and we've got a Trump humper on the other side, whoever that might be, God help him because he's going to get
Yeah.
fucked up
Yeah,
or
even her
she.
announcing her tour it was so genius. Like you go on a view where, it's like 95% women who's watching this
Right.
particular show, and
Right.
it's daytime. You know what I mean? So it was like it was targeted her even announcing her tour, which was like, it's pretty cool for them to. So sometime I think, like, why aren't they marketing? Why aren't they doing this or that? And I really do feel that they were waiting for election year, and Biden has like 100 million plus in his war chest, like,
Right.
okay, now it's time to start, firing off. Because if you do it too soon, we have a habit of forgetting things.
Yeah, no
Like you have
shit.
to time it to where it's in people's mind at the time that they go to vote. So I think that's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
No, I think you're right. I think from this point on toward November of 2024, things are going to heat up. Things are going to go badly for Donald Trump, court cases and that such.
Hmm.
But I think the Democrats are going to ramp it up a little bit. Now, I want to make the transition to a very intelligent, articulate woman to a dumbass woman. And I'm talking about Alina Haba. We had the E. Jean Carroll case started a couple of
Hmm.
days ago. Um, they had the jury selection. Uh, and then yesterday they had the testimony. And the testimony that was given was from E. Jean Carroll. And I got to give E. Jean Carroll, she's gone through a lot of shit. She's 80 years
Yeah.
old. And from all I've heard, she's been very, very stoic and very straightforward and not affected. She got a little emotional when she was describing some of these things, but she's taken the heat pretty well. And Donald Trump is sitting there right in the on the defense table, and you've got lawyers that are doing goofy shit. Yeah. We can talk about the stories about what happened yesterday because it's absolutely ridiculous. What was your first thought when you heard these stories about what happened in this court case?
To me, like watching the reporting comes out real time, it was
Yeah,
kind of like catching fish in a barrel. Like that's how easy it was to run over Alina Haba. Like
right,
the complete incompetence is on full display. It is insane. I think that, and I've been waiting personally for a judge that's like no nonsense and not tolerating any of their crap. And I had my hopes kind of low for him because we ever since he's been indicted is this judge doesn't play that, this judge is strict, and then they kind of let him run roughshod and do whatever he wants. But
right.
this judge doesn't seem to be allowing them to get away with any of the shenanigans, is what I call them. And poor Alina Haba. I'm like, how many times do he got to tell you to sit down? And then at one point when I was seeing, he was telling her, if you want to make an objection or whatever, you have to stand up and make your argument. So she stood up, and then when she was done, he's like, okay, now you can sit down now. So to me, it's like he's training a puppy. Like, okay, you stand for this, you do, like you're training her to something that she should already know. And it's like it's I don't know, like she should be his publicist, not his attorney. I don't
Right.
understand why she's in the courtroom. And then I don't understand why there's another attorney sitting at the table that can't participate in the trial. Like, why is he there? It's bizarre, but it's kind of entertaining at the
Well,
same time.
Alina Haba is famous for saying recently that she'd rather be pretty than smart. And I
Mm.
get it. I get it. I've only gotten this far on my looks. No brains, just looks. But you know what's interesting about this? You heard the story earlier this week about Joe Tacopina.
Oh yeah.
And I describe him as a loudmouth Fred Flintstone looking motherfucker because he is.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
there's an attorney that used to work for Donald Trump and quit, Parlatore, and he was talking about this Tacopina and
Yeah.
how he was kind of a joke, and they put him on a shelf because he screwed up the E. Jean Carroll case, the first one. So
Yeah.
now Parlatore is saying that Joe Tacopina fucked up the E. Jean Carroll case, the first one, and they put him on the shelf because he fucked it up. So your answer to a fucked up lawyer in the E. Jean Carroll case, when you have a second E. Jean Carroll case, is to bring in Alina Haba. Wow, that's scraping the bottom of the barrel.
I don't think that Joe, I don't know how much he screwed it up. I do know that there is only so much you can do when your client is completely guilty.
Right,
You know,
right.
like what can you do when you have a client who is on tape at a deposition saying, yeah, if you're a star, they let you do it, fortunately or unfortunately. When you have him saying, I never met this woman, but I was really good friends with her husband. I know her cat's name. I know where I was at when I met her. I know in 15 minutes we were upstairs playing hanky panky, but I don't know who this woman is. So it's like, what do you do with that? Like, there's nothing you can do. The only thing you can do is try to mitigate the damages, and it's like, okay, yeah, he's guilty, but let's get him to pay as less as possible. And I think that $5 million really wasn't that bad of a settlement considering the situation and
No,
considering his ability to pay. I just feel like there was nothing he could have done. I wouldn't have put myself in that situation as an attorney, and most of my work is going to be gained off of my reputation. I wouldn't put myself in that situation, but there was just nothing he could do. Like, what could he have done?
well, the thing about it too is Donald Trump is still trying to litigate the case as to whether he did it and whether he knew her or not. The fact of the
Yeah,
matter is that's already been determined in court. He was found
yeah,
liable for sexually abusing her or sexually assaulting her and for defaming her. That's already a done deal. This is just to decide how much he's going to have to pay. I wanted to bring up one other person too. You were talking about the judge being kind of no nonsense.
hmm,
There's Donald Trump's right hand dipshit. His name is Boris Epstein, who is also a lawyer.
hmm,
He stands up and tries to interject in the case and talk to the judge. The judge looks at him and he says, "Are you a member of the bar here?" He says, "No,
yep,
I'm a member of the New York bar, the state of New York bar." And he goes, "Well, then sit the fuck down. Shut
yeah,
up." I love that. I love that. But then of course Donald Trump shows up at this thing and while E. Jean Carroll is testifying, he's sighing, he's harumphing, he's making comments that are heard by his lawyer, and he's not that far away from the jury, so the jury's hearing it too. That election interference, it's a witch hunt, and all this stuff. And he had to be uh, reprimanded a couple of times to the point where the judge said, "Listen, if you keep doing this, um, I'm going to have to kick you the fuck out of here." And Donald Trump is reported of saying, "Well, I would love that." And the judge says, "Yeah, I know you do." And then he proceeded
hmm,
not to kick him out of the courtroom. See, the important thing is Donald Trump doesn't even have to be there. Not in this case. You would think
Right.
with all the criminal cases that he will be required to be in, he might want to take a break before the next 6, 8 months because he's going to be a busy motherfucker in court.
Right, and those delay tactics are not working at all.
No.
Even when, oh my gosh, my wife, her mother passed away. This is the same woman who she was in the hospital dying and you were partying with Vanilla Ice. So you don't even have to be here. You could be with your wife. You could be at the funeral. You could be doing anything. The first trial, Joe Tacopino, I just keep butchering his name, but he got an extension twice saying that, Trump was going to come. And so the judge did allow for those extensions.
Right.
So it's like you've already pulled that card of I need an extension twice already. And the judge is not going to allow you to do that a third time. So there is a history of you extending and extending and extending with this one judge. And so no, he's not falling for that. And so,
Well, I don't know.
like people give Joe a bad name, but he did the best he could in the first trial. He just, sometimes you cannot make $1 out of 15 cents. Sometimes it's just 15 cents. That's it. No.
Well, I don't understand the whole strategy of Donald Trump delaying the inevitable. I understand trying to get out past the election and all that stuff. It's not going to matter because he's not going to win. But this case is already over. This is just the punishment phase. So
Yeah.
delaying it is just putting off a few days or a week the inevitable. He's still going to get punished. And the thing is in this case, as I understand it, E. Jean Carroll is asking for $10 million. But as the lawyer is talking for E. Jean Carroll, she pointed out some interesting things that Donald Trump already has been sued. He was fined $5 million, and that wasn't enough to get him to stop lying.
Yeah.
In fact,
Mhm.
on the day of the start of the trial and during the trial, while he's in the courtroom, he defamed her 22, 32 more times. So the
Yeah.
point she was trying to make is, what's it going to take for him to stop? 5 million wasn't enough. Is 10 million enough? Doubt it. So does that mean this jury seeing all this stuff, and they can't be very sympathetic to Donald Trump, even though she's asking for $10 million. It's conceivable that this jury would say, we're tired of this shit. It's not helping. Let's hit them with 50 or 60 million. I wouldn't be surprised by that, depending on how the
Yeah.
jury is perceiving all of this.
Yeah. I think they're gonna Rudy Giuliani him, you know? Like, I
Wouldn't that
think
be hilarious?
that's like a new slogan. Don't make me Rudy Giuliani you. Like I'm gonna take all your money. But I do think, that's a possibility because he's not stopping. And then he's incapable of like just shutting up.
Yeah.
And it's like real time, they're proving the defamation. Like it's not something he did yesterday, a week ago, or a year ago. This is something he did right now while you're sitting in the jury box and he was sitting right here on this bench. He was doing it. You know what I mean? And I think that's part of the reason the judge did not throw him out of the courtroom, even though it's kind of strategic on the judge's end to let the jury see how unhinged he is, how erratic he is, and just like his inability to control his urges and his emotions. That goes a long way to proving that he is the type of person that, he will force himself on someone. He will force his will onto someone else. And the judge is allowing for the jury to see that by
Right.
not kicking him out of the courtroom. So,
Right. Exactly. So
yeah,
actually, he's doing exactly what we always say. Let him talk. Let him do what he's
yeah,
going to do because he'll fuck himself over.
yeah.
If Donald Trump were a grade school student in a normal class with this kind of behavior, he'd
Mhm.
be immediately transferred to a one-on-one special classroom where he could be dealt with alone. And I know this because my wife's a teacher, and that's
Yeah.
what they do with incorrigible dumb fucks is take them in a room with one person, and they put together blocks or whatever, but they deal with them because they end up being more of a distraction for the room and affecting everybody's else's productivity, and certainly Donald Trump is intentionally trying to affect the productivity in this courtroom. So I know the goal would be to kick him out. If this were a normal trial, they probably might do that or put him in another room with a mic they could shut off and on. But he doesn't even need to be here for this. So they could theoretically kick him out without any losing anything as far as
Yeah.
getting the case done. But I think you're right. I think the judge go, all right, you want to fuck yourself up? Go on, do your thing.
Yeah, and you know what? If he was that child in the school, like he's already wearing a diaper, of course he needs a babysitter, you know? So I think that that's very fitting to just put him in a one-on-one situation. I feel sorry for the person he's one-on-one with, but you know.
I'd make it a large man, not a small woman, because um, he'd be less apt to act out if someone was watching him. Well, Old Soul, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back. I don't know what we're going to talk about in the second half, but somehow, some way, you and I always find a way to talk about the things at hand in the news today. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back.
Yep.
We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Old Soul is with us today, always an enlightening show when she's on it. We're going to talk about the border issue here in a second, but this is a good time to bring this up. You know, Old Soul, my wife and I have a tendency to take some trips because she works for an airline and we can fly free and we're retired, so we have a lot of freedom. We go to Georgia. We went to Portland, Maine, and we came to Las Vegas and saw you. And we were thinking about going to Palm Springs, but apparently there's some big activity in Palm Springs, so it's harder to get hotel rooms and stuff. So my wife says, "You know where I want to go? Why don't we do this? I was there when I was like 20. Why don't we go to South Padre Island in Texas?" I go, "Honey, I can't go there. After all the shit I talk about tech, I can't go to." And my wife, in a sensitive way, says, "Fuck you, figure it out." So, so, so in the early or about mid-February, we're supposed to go to South Padre Island. I don't know what to expect. It's more of a resort area, so hopefully I won't run into the rednecks. But I decided that that's pretty close to the border. Maybe I'll call it my trip to the border so I can see what I can do to fix the shit down there. I don't know. But so don't hate me. I'm just doing what my wife told me, and you met my wife, Old Soul. I'm in no position to fuck around with Cindy when she wants to do something. So
Smart man.
yeah, scared man is what it is. Um, but you were talking about at the break about a hearing that went on regarding the
Uh,
border. And this is a point of contention between the Democrats and the Republicans. And it seems like every time the Democrats come up with an idea for the border, the Republicans nix it. So do they
yeah.
really want the border fixed, or are they just using it for political reasons? And I think the latter is the truth. Anyway, tell us about the hearing.
The name of the hearing was the Biden administration's unilateral actions fueling the border crisis. So
Who came up with that name? It had to be the Republicans, I'm guessing.
I guess Comer did.
Yeah,
Except for I've been calling him Homer lately, like
he's
because he does feel like Homer Simpson. He's just like, don't.
yeah,
Ever since he did that face plant thing, that's what it reminds me of.
he does. He does. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, so they were just basically just making it 10 times worse. First, that little stunt that they pulled like a couple of weeks ago with what's his name? Mike Johnson when he went to the border and
Mhm.
there were like no people there. It was so I'm wondering if there's like people on their staff or whatever that's snitching on them. Because how did all of a sudden, you know, Biden's administration open up 3 ports of entry so that it's not all congested in one place. And when you're watching it on Fox News, it just looks like a ton of people there when it really isn't. So they open up those 3 ports of entry, and then all of a sudden, when Republicans go down there to pull their little stunt, there's no immigrants to point at. So I was like, I wonder if their staff doesn't like them to the point to where they're like tipping off Democrats as to what's going on.
Right.
I was thinking that. But today they were just saying, how it's an invasion, the fentanyl, and Moskowitz, um,
Jared
Crockett,
Moskowitz.
they were all just shutting it down, saying, and I think AOC was the one who said they proposed a bill for 1,300 more agents at the border, and Republicans shut that down. And I was working when I was like watching it, so I couldn't get like all the stats that they were saying, but they were like systematically pointing out every single time that the Biden administration offered to resolve the border crisis. So Crockett pointed that out, and she even referenced the governor of Texas saying, we're doing everything that we can do at the border except for shoot the immigrants. And we can't shoot the immigrants because if we do, then Biden would charge us with murder. And she actually read his statement in the hearing, which was crazy. And then after they finished, AOC finished, Moskowitz finished, then I'm sorry, AOC and Crockett finished. Then here comes Moskowitz, and he's reading tweets and statements by Republicans saying, I think one of them said, we're not, Biden, we're not going to give him a win on the border. And
Right.
so he was reading all of these, like they can't shut up and stop talking on Fox News. So Moskowitz was taking all of their statements when they were just saying, hey, we are not going to do anything about the border because it's going to give Biden a win. And then he read a statement that I didn't even see where Mike Johnson said that he doesn't believe that now is the time for a diplomatic solution or something at the border. Although it's a border crisis, now is not the time to deal with it because like we have other things to do, something to that effect. And then at the end of the hearing, it's like, okay, so why are we here? We've offered solutions. We've offered this, and this, and you guys refuse to do anything about it because you don't want to give Biden a win. So why are we here? And I like the fact that they did that. I just don't like the fact that you have to watch like C-SPAN or other,
Right.
channels like boring channels, like I call them boring channels, but the channels that I watch in order to get that information, because it should be on CNN, it should be on MSNBC, it should be on Fox. Since your viewers are the one who are demanding that we do something about the border, why are you not showing this hearing and letting your audience see the salute? Well, I know why Fox isn't doing it, but
Right.
for everyone else, you should be showing the
You would think, yeah.
solutions that's being proposed, but the average American, they're not seeing that. And it's driving me crazy. Like I wish, once a week that everybody was like forced to watch C-SPAN for a day so they can they can get these facts out there. But
Well,
I don't think it's something people are seeing.
if the mainstream media really wanted to, they could take sound bites out of it and air it. I mean, it
Yeah.
isn't that hard for them to do that. I'm sure C-SPAN wouldn't have a problem with it. I think the important thing to understand, as much as the Republicans talk about the border crisis, and as much
Hmm.
as they want their Republicans or Trumplafucks to worry about it and blame Joe Biden for it,
Yeah.
Republicans do not want to fix the border crisis. It's not about the
No.
border crisis. It's about the talking point to try to help them win in 2024. And that's the essence of who the Republicans are. They don't want to do anything. They want to bitch about somebody else not doing anything, even though they're trying to do it. And
Yeah.
that's why Republicans are obstructionist fucks. They don't want to do anything. And we do need to expose the fact that Democrats have offered some opportunities, and they specifically said, we don't want to do it because we don't want to give Joe Biden a win. Well, it
Right.
wouldn't be a win if we did it bipartisan. It would be an equal win, but they can't even
Mhm.
comprehend that.
Right. And it was for me watching that, I was just wishing that your Trumpla Fs had access to see that and know that this thing that you're hyping up in your head, this thing that they're making you get angry about, it's just to give them for you to give them more money basically. And then Moskowitz did say something that the Biden administration, not Biden, but the Obama administration, of course, Joe Biden was the vice president at that time, he actually pointed out stats to where they deported more people
Right.
than Trump did. And he
Right.
was like, this isn't like an 8-year term. For 4 years, they deported this many people compared to Trump. And then in that second 4 years, they deported this many more people than Trump did. So he was actually pointing out that Obama and Biden deported far more people than Trump ever did. So
Right.
why is this an issue now? And he was saying, you guys act like there's no history here. This is something that's been going on for decades, but you want your audience or you want your supporters to think that there was no border crisis, there was nothing going on, everything was fine until Biden. And he was just like, that's just not true. And it was like they were shutting them down, just like point after point after point. And they really, they couldn't say anything. They couldn't combat the facts. And I don't even think they were trying because
Yeah.
they realized that their audience, they're not watching C-SPAN right now. So
Right.
it wasn't even, normally they go back and forth and it's this huge showmanship between both sides. It was just Democrats spitting facts and Republicans is just, they had their little talking points in the beginning and then they just kind of like slacked off after that. And I think they are able to do that because they realize their audience is not listening to this. Their audience is not seeing this. It doesn't matter. They can go out of this hearing, go directly to Fox News and just say, yeah, we just had a hearing about how incompetent the Biden administration is when it comes to the border. They can literally do that because they know the people they're talking to. They didn't see none of this last 3 hours that I just sat and watched.
Well, I would think that even if the mainstream media is not willing to go get sound bites out of these things where the Republicans are constantly being embarrassed, I would hope the campaigns, the
Yeah,
advertising agencies are smart enough to grab those sound bites
yeah,
to put in commercials. I mean, probably the most valuable sound bite the Democrats have is Donald Trump saying, "Yeah, I overturned Roe v. Wade. It's all me, and I'm proud of it." That's all
yeah,
you need. As far as I'm
yeah,
concerned, that ends the fucking election right there.
yeah. I don't think that it would be such a disservice. Sat there like 3.5 hours watching this hearing on C-SPAN, and it would be such a disservice if they didn't come out with ads from just like that last 3.5 hours with just the stats and exactly what it is that we offer. Even Mike Johnson's own words, like, yeah, it's a problem, but now is not the time to solve it. But then he will go on live television and say, we have to do something right now. It's an invasion. They're doing this, they're doing that. And even AOC had a point too, where there are certain cities and states and like with the border towns or whatever, where when it's in Florida as well, where immigrants are fleeing those areas and they are looking for work, but they don't have people to fill these positions
Right.
because you made it so hostile for immigrants to be there. So you're kind of like you're hurting your own communities by kicking all of your workers out or making
Right.
it hostile for your workers or demonizing them. You're hurting your own community, their profits, their businesses. Like you're hurting your own economy for a talking point. That's
Well,
insane to me.
the Republicans do have an answer for that. The immigrants come in and they, a lot of industries need them for work, especially like in Florida or even in Texas for that matter. They
Mm-hmm.
need immigrants to continue with their businesses. And for whatever reason, they don't care about that. But the fix to that, you heard Mike Johnson say it. You heard I can't remember who it was, maybe Stefanik say it. They said, and this is the most dystopian thing I've ever heard from, well, not the most, but one of them says, well, we've got to stop these abortions because then we'll have more people to be employees down the road. So they think they're going to fill in the employee shortage with stopping abortions. Well, we got to wait 15, 20 years before they're even able to work should they survive the circumstances.
Not necessarily
Well,
because
yeah, yeah, you're right.
I know I told you about what's her name that have Huckabee Sanders with the one with the podium, the whole
Right.
podium gate, whatever her name is, how she loosened up child labor laws in Arkansas. Well, there's other red states that's following suit right now. And they're using that to justify not participating in food programs. They're doing that to maybe justify some labor shortages that they're having. They're loosening child labor laws.
Right.
So it's just like, okay, yeah, we can kick all the immigrants out and, we can make these kids work. But the thing about it is, have you ever been a child and you're trying to sit in school and your stomach is growling and you're hungry? That doesn't go too well. Okay, so now we're going to put you in the field and make you work as a child on an empty stomach. I don't know how they think this is going to work out, but it's not going to go like that.
I got to tell you, if someone said to my 3-year-old granddaughter, "Why don't you go out there and do some work?" That's
Mm.
not going to go well. She's got a little grandma in her, and she's going to be dangerous when she gets to a certain age. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
absolutely ridiculous. But, in order for these young kids to work, don't the parents have to be on board for it? I mean, don't they make the decision? And what kind of parents would those be if they let their 8-year-old kids go to work?
Yeah, it's for my daughter when she was 14, I had to sign off on a work permit, and
Yeah.
that was the earliest. So, 13 and under, there's no working.
Yeah, but
But
she
I
put
signed off on a work permit, but it wasn't like she was in the fields doing hard labor. Like she was literally like on the weekends in front of Walmart, like selling newspapers or
right.
you know what I mean? But that was it. I would never imagine her. And I think even in Arkansas now, you can have 16-year-olds serving alcohol in restaurants now.
Wow.
So I would never have her doing stuff like that. You just you earn a couple bucks, you're just standing outside of Walmart, people are buying newspapers from you. That's it. And then she wasn't doing it like all day long. I think like her longest shift was like 5 hours or something like that. But it was just like I don't understand why they assume that people would just give you their children to just work to death, like, from the age of 12 until they're 80. Like, why would anyone want to subject their children to that? And
Well,
then on
you
top of that, they're supposed to be hungry while they're out there doing the labor. That
right.
makes no sense.
Well, you know as well as I do, there are some shitty parents out there. But I can imagine when your daughter comes to you and say, "Hey, mom, I got a great job. It's good money, 10 hours a day, 4 days a week, working in a slaughterhouse. Just sign here." I have a feeling you wouldn't do that.
No. And if you don't get this paper out of my face, we're gonna have a problem. It's like you're my child. I love you. I would work 3 jobs. I would work in a slaughterhouse before I put you into a slaughterhouse. Your job right now is to be a child and have a child's experience and grow and learn and thrive as a child. But I would never stunt your childhood or do anything to distract from that for some
Yeah.
politician's greed. That's not going to happen. We would literally move states before I would allow something like that to happen to my daughter, my niece, anybody, any child that I was in charge of. That just wouldn't happen on my watch.
And I'll be honest with you, I've seen some interviews with, I saw a video on TikTok recently, and I know this isn't all the kids, but kids
Mhm.
of today are different than you were when you were a kid, certainly different than when I was a kid. And there was this little girl, she wasn't going to college. She was like 19 or 20 or 21 or something like that. And
Mhm.
she was working and she was doing this video and she was crying. She says, "I can't believe this. I have to work 8 hours a day every day. I got to take a train for 30 minutes to get there, a train to for 30 minutes to get back and work 8 hours every day. I don't have time to do anything I want to do. I can't
Mhm.
believe they're making me do this. Like this is something unusual." Can you imagine trying to talk a little girl like this? Now you're going to work 12 hours in the slaughterhouse. Here's a here's a axe and just go do it. I don't know that the kids are going to even if mom and dad wanted them to do it. I can't imagine that they're going to fucking do it.
No, especially these days, the way technology is the way that it is, there's so many different ways to make or to generate income. And I think that's what Republicans are failing to see. You see how many people on YouTube have reaction videos with,
Right.
you know, couple 100,000 subscribers, even 60,000 subscribers is like paying your rent and your bills. I hate to bring this up because I don't really condone it, but there's like OnlyFans out there for some of these young girls to do. There's so many different ways to generate income. I've even seen some girls who do like feet pictures and sell those for like $10 a pop. And you want them to, instead of stepping on a banana and sending a picture, you want them to go and pick watermelons for 70 cents. That's just not going to happen. So I
Well,
think that they are underestimating the next generation, um, their ability to hustle and make money without having to do the whole corporate thing, or the 9 to 5 is what I would call it.
well, I'm
Some
on tick.
will, but a lot won't. And I don't see them,
No,
this generation, I don't see them replacing immigrants in this country. I don't see that at all.
no. I mean, I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and of course YouTube. And being an old guy, I saw OnlyFans. That's a new platform. I thought I'd check into that. And before I could even get in the gateway, they said, "No, get the fuck out of here. You have no business being here unless you're a paying customer." And I ain't paying anybody for anything. But you're right. There are people. There are many ways to make money, and working in a field picking whatever fruit is just not
Mhm.
necessarily the way to do it. And that's the one thing when you talked about Kamala talking to college students and now talking to people regarding Roe v. Wade. Um, that's the thing that I think we old white people specifically, uh, those of those type in the Republican Party, everything they're arguing about, everything that they're against, like abortion, has nothing to do with us. Me
Yeah.
directly, abortion isn't an issue for me because neither my wife or I are in a position to have any more kids. That's not going to happen. As far as working in having our kids work in the fields, we don't have kids young enough to work in the fields. I couldn't get them to do the fucking dishes, let alone work in fields. The
Yeah.
point is that all these things these old white people are putting in place are going to affect these young people. And I'm glad Kamala is out there saying, listen, you got a bunch of dumb old white people want to fuck up your life. Don't let it
Mhm.
happen. And
Yeah.
I'm glad that message is finally getting delivered.
Yeah. And I think even for your generation, they are expecting for you not to care.
True,
And I
true.
think they expect for you to have the same mentality that they have, even when it comes to something as simple as climate change. I think that they are expecting for your generation to say, well, I'm going to be dead. It's not going to affect me. But they expect for you not to think about your children and your grandchildren that's coming after you, who have to inherit the planet the way that it is, because their mindset is they really don't care about that. So they just expect for everyone else in that generation just not to care about that. And I've heard people say, I'm gonna be dead, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you're gonna be dead, but your child's still gonna be here, your grandchild's still gonna be here, the kid up the block is still gonna be here. Like, you don't care about none of these people that's gonna be here after you. It's such a selfish way to think about it, but I honestly do think they expect for you to think about that. I'm old, I can't have any more children. I don't care about abortion rights. Like, they really expect for you to think the way that they think, which is
Well, I have
not.
this argument with people uh, anywhere I live. Whenever there's a school referendum that comes around, they'll
Mhm.
say, I don't have kids, so I'm voting against it. I go, you
Mm.
sure you want to do that? Because
Yeah.
what because while up to the end of your nose, it makes sense because it'll save you money on taxes. But if you don't have a school referendum and you get to a certain age, 75 years old, you want to sell your house and your house is um, part of your retirement. You want to get as much as you can get for it.
Right.
And just out of curiosity, what sells better, a house in a good school district or a house in a bad school district? It's
Right.
going to make you money down the line. And the same thing is said for this. Now, I'm 63. Say I have 20 years left. And I could say, fuck it, 20 years, I'm done. I don't care what the fuck happens. But now I have a granddaughter that's 3 years old. Now I got to look out 80 years, well past the time I'm gone, and
Hmm.
worry about that. And if you're
Right,
not worrying about the future for your grandkids, you're fucking failing. You got to worry
right.
about that shit because we're putting things in place now that will impact them 20, 30, 40, 50 years later. And they're going to know where this came from. If you want
Yeah.
any kind of legacy or love from your ancestors or whatever, you got to do the fucking right thing. Don't just worry about your own little pocketbook and the end of your nose. That's the problem we have with Republicans. They are they're very self-centered and they only care about themselves. And unfortunately, there's a bigger picture to consider.
Yeah, and you can't take any of this stuff with you.
No,
Like you can't take any of it with you. So it's kind of like, why are you fighting so hard to just like hold on to whatever it is that you want, that you feel that you need to hold on to? um you can't take any of that with you. You can't ask for your family to bury your millions in your coffin with you. I mean, they can do that, but there's some grave robbers out there that'll get you. You know what I mean? So you can't take it with you. And I don't think people are worried about their legacy. I don't think they're worried about their children. And even if you're not here, and the importance of worrying about your legacy is, there's somebody else that's going to carry that name. And what kind of scars are you leaving on that person? Like, if you think about Trump's youngest son, Barron, he can't do anything in politics, or even if he
no.
wanted to be a different type of person than his father, he has that stigma, that stench
Yeah,
from his father on him for the rest of his life. So it doesn't even matter the type of person that he is, that's going to follow him everywhere. And it's like Trump has the inability to look at his legacy and what that does to his son that's coming up behind him. And
right.
I think that's the same for a lot of Republicans, even if it's not financial. There's a namesake, there's a legacy, there's something that's there that's attached to someone else. And you have to think about that other person. Well, I have to think about that other person. They don't, which I don't know how they sleep at night, but you know,
I don't either, but when you're self-centered and selfish, I guess you can get through a lot of shit. Now, of course,
yeah.
we had the Iowa caucus earlier in the week. Donald
Hmm.
Trump won. Not a big surprise. Ron
Yeah.
DeSantis came in second. Um, and Nikki Haley came in third. Um, Donald Trump and the Republicans are really crowing about how big Donald Trump won. As far as what everything I saw, it was a disappointment in terms of turnout,
Yeah.
the number of Republicans that actually voted for Donald Trump. I don't think
Hmm.
any of this in the Iowa caucus was good news for Donald Trump.
I don't know how to say this, but I'll just say the word snow.
Yeah.
If you are Donald Trump and you are in a state as snow as Iowa, and you can't get incumbent numbers, because I've heard people say it's like he's an incumbent, which he is.
Yeah,
You
kind
should
of.
be, yeah, you should be exceeding that. And so you can take a victory lap all you want, but it just kind of says, like, he's that stigma where people say, "Oh, um, you can't win a primary without Trump. I mean, without Trump, but you can't win a general with him." That
Right.
applies to him too. So he could do whatever he wants in these little primaries, but when it comes to the general, he can't do that, because the only thing that he has right now is his hardcore base, and then half of like the normal Republicans, if you can call them normal. But what about the other half? And you need the whole Republican Party behind you, but you only have like half of them that has your back. Then what about the independents? What about the soft Democrats who are not happy with Biden? Like, you're leaving so many people behind. And I don't think he has the ability to see that. He can only see his diehard, and him saying that they are 90% of the Republican Party, they've taken over the Republican Party. His
No.
performance in Iowa proved that to be a complete and utter lie,
Well, and,
falsehood, whatever.
and you know the excuse of, well, it was cold and it was snowy. I live in Minnesota, just north of
Yeah.
Iowa. Cold and snowy isn't unusual in this part of the country. when it's
Hmm.
cold and snowy, long as the roads are plowed and you can move around, you still go shopping. You still might go skiing. I don't buy the idea that it was too cold and nobody showed up. Bullshit.
No. No,
Especially
I'm from Vegas.
Republicans.
We get triple degree heat. You know what I mean? So that's
Yeah.
just like me saying I didn't show up for, for this caucus because it was 120 degrees outside. I mean, it's kind of like the equivalent. Like there's no excuse for that. We're in a desert. We're used to that type of heat. They're used to that type of cold. They didn't show up because they didn't want to or they wasn't motivated to do so.
Right, right, exactly. So now it's off to New Hampshire, another cold state. Actually, next week it sounds like it's going to be warmer here, upper 30s, maybe 40. So it'll probably be warmer out there. Um, Nikki Haley said something after the Iowa caucus. She came in third, and she
Yeah.
said, "Now it looks like it's a two-person race between me and Donald Trump," which is a crazy thing to say when you came in third. But if you look at New Hampshire and look at the polling there, the polling suggests that Donald Trump is in the lead, as you would expect. Nikki Haley's only behind Donald Trump by 11 points. So anything
Yeah.
could happen with that situation. But Ron DeSantis, he's sitting with 8 points, and he has done nothing in New Hampshire until this week. So I have a feeling that if he does poorly, and he will do poorly, that Ron will probably drop out, leaving only Nikki Haley, and she's a weak candidate at best.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was my unpopular opinion with anyone I discussed with it, because everyone's like she came out in third place, and she said Iowa just made this a two-person race, and I was
Right,
like, well, they did, and the reason that they did is because she has support of the college educated voters, right?
right,
And she knows that for the next caucus, it's primarily college educated Republicans. So she already knows she has a leg up there with the educated crowd versus DeSantis and versus Trump. So when
right.
she saw, I don't know why they call them entry polls, but when she saw those entry polls, I think that's where she was coming from when she made that statement.
Oh,
It's like,
okay.
oh, okay, so the college and the educated, they're rolling with me. And now I just get to go to a caucus where college and educated voters are rolling with me. So in Iowa, even though she came in third place, they were letting her know that now you're getting ready to be in second place. And
Right,
even she was like not that far of a distance in a third. So I think when she came out and when she said it, the reason she said it so confidently is because she had already knew that. She had already
right.
saw that. So I don't think it was a slip up on her part. I think she was just looking ahead as most women do, and she was predicting what's going to happen next.
Well, I saw a video of somebody interviewing somebody claiming to be a Democrat. And they said, "Would
Hmm.
you vote for Nikki Haley?" And she said, "Well, I might." And I did a TikTok mainly because as a warning. I said, Nikki Haley would have you believe that she's the normal one, that she's of a reasonable mind, that she's the safe one. But the fact
Hmm.
of the matter is, she was as big a Trump humper as anybody. She was in Donald Trump's administration. She said that she would vote for Donald Trump even if he's convicted, that she would pardon him. So make no mistake, she's as bad as anyone else. She's just got a more polished appearance and a little better vocabulary. That's really the only difference. And people should be
How
fine.
low is that bar where
Well,
you gotta
yeah, it's
be
kind
more
of low.
articulate and polished than Trump? If
Yeah,
you
but
set the bar any lower, it would be on the floor. But go ahead.
but here's what I don't understand is Nikki's going to go to New Hampshire,
Hmm.
and if she beats Donald Trump, it's going to be interesting because Donald Trump will lose his shit. But it's conceivable she could win, and
Yeah.
Donald Trump could win. Ron DeSantis is pretty much out the door. But after New Hampshire, most people are saying Nikki doesn't have a chance to beat Donald Trump anywhere. So she wins one primary and then
Yep.
doesn't win anymore. How does that put her in a good situation for November?
Nikki can't be anybody anywhere outside of this next caucus. I think that's gonna be her. I don't know how to call it, her jock in high school. That's gonna be her peak.
Right.
After that, it's just gonna be her shoulda, coulda, wouldas.
Yeah.
She's gonna wish that she should have done it different. She's going to know that she could have done it different, and she's going to have to deal with that. She's not able to look her own self in the mirror. So I don't know how she plans on speaking for a country and representing a country, especially a diverse country. That's not going to happen. She's not going to be able to win independents and Democrats over like that. It's if she beats Trump, great. If she doesn't, that's great too. I don't feel any threat from her at all just because of who she is and who she is showing herself to be. I think she wore that mask really well at first, but now that mask is just like slipped down, in my opinion. And people who couldn't see it before, they see it now.
Well, Republicans are quick to latch on to people. We know that when Donald Trump was starting to get some of the baggage, they latched on to Ron DeSantis without
Right.
doing a deep dive on who he is. And now he's
Mhm.
falling apart. Next person to grab is Nikki Haley. And I saw who Nikki Haley was in an interview yesterday or the day before. I'm not sure which, but somebody was asking her about Donald Trump's current situation with the lawsuit with E. Jean Carroll and about the sexual assault.
Yeah.
Nikki Haley said she has no courage at all. She says, "Well, I don't know anything about that. I haven't looked into that." Bitch, it's been in every newspaper on every television station for the last 8 months. You do
Yeah.
know. And she says, well, I don't really want to do anything until somebody's convicted of it. And of course, the interviewer didn't say, well, he's kind of been convicted of it. A jury said that he committed sexual assault, but they didn't follow up that way. And she says, well, if he did it, then he's got to pay the price. But she couldn't get away from it fast enough. I don't understand how anybody thinks they're going to beat somebody else if they have no courage to go after
I,
the person who's their opponent.
she just pisses me off,
Yeah, she does me too.
especially lately. It's like, what a disgrace as a woman. What a
Yeah.
disgrace as a minority. You just gonna sell your whole self out for the
Well,
Republican Party, for a small part of the base. And as you stated earlier, the Republican Party has been so quick to grasp on to something and someone else
right.
because they are not enthusiastic about Trump. They don't want him. And even Fox News and Ron DeSantis came out, they were all over him because they just want someone else so badly and so desperately. And the people that are running against Trump, they refuse to give it to them. So it's like, why wouldn't they go gravitate to someone else? You're not giving him anyone else to gravitate towards. And that's is doing a disservice to their voters when they do that. They need to know the truth. They need to hear the truth. And just as a woman, you can make that case. Like that was a prime opportunity for her to do that, and she refused to do it. It's so disgraceful. I don't even feel disappointed. It's just a disgrace, and that makes her look bad
Well, I don't
because
understand her reason
I
for
don't
doing
I don't
it.
get
I
it.
mean, she supports overturning Roe v. Wade. She doesn't
Mhm.
acknowledge Donald Trump sexually assaulting a woman. You would think she'd want to get women on her side because she's a woman, but she's done everything she can to alienate women, which is just
Yeah.
a stupid move.
Yeah, not only is she alienating women, she's alienating minorities as well.
Yeah,
She refuses to acknowledge slavery for like what, another week
yeah,
before she was able to do that. And then, she turns around and say this never was a racist country. In the same breath, not even in the second breath, in the same breath, she says, I've faced racial discrimination. It's not as bad now as it was then. So how was this never a racist country? And then
yeah,
you say that at the same time that Trump and his little minions, they're going back and I will respect if you want to be called Nikki, I will call you Nikki out of respect, just like I would respect anybody's pronouns. I'm not going to call you by a name that you don't want to be called by.
right.
But they don't have that same respect for you. And these are the people you're going hard for. You're so ashamed and you're so embarrassed by your quote unquote ethnic name that you have to simplify your name to Nikki to appease this group of people that you want to belong to. And
Yeah.
now it's an actual threat that they would use your government name. Are you kidding me? And you expect to be the voice of this country for women, for minorities, for everybody? Nah, that's not gonna happen. She needs to go somewhere and sit down like yesterday. She need to
Well,
have several seats. She way out of pocket. She just, I'm gonna stop. Go ahead.
no, 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 no. That quote you said, we need to isolate that more, because when I heard that quote, I immediately said, I gotta get Old Soul's opinion on this. What Nikki Haley actually said, she said, this country is not now and never was a racist country. And that was an epiphany for me, because now I'm finding out this whole slavery thing had nothing to do with race. How did it fucking happen?
I guess they just didn't like each other.
Yeah, it must have been. But for her to say that is such a desperation move. You know, she's um, there's nobody. I born 1960. I'm sitting here in 2024, and I can guarantee you, even as a white man, an old white man right now, racism has been here when I was born, and it'll be here after I die. It may have been hidden under the rocks and under the cover of darkness for a time because people were afraid to come out and say it, but it was always there. And the only reason it bubbles to the top now is because the Republicans have made it cool to be racist again. So to
Yeah.
suggest this country isn't racist to a certain extent, you know, you and I grew up in different areas. I grew up in a predominantly white area, you know, an urban area. But I know the racism was rampant. Even when I was a little boy, when I was in my teens, when it was supposed to be better, I knew it was there. I heard it all the time. For her to say
Yeah.
that is just disingenuous. She's just spewing something because she can't come up with anything else.
It really is. I think for me personally, if she would have been like Kaylee McEnany or just, someone like that,
Some
and she
white
made
Becky,
that
right?
if she would have made that comment, I would have it would have annoyed me, but not to the point that it did when Nikki said it, because I could justify in my mind that's your human experience. Maybe you haven't experienced. Maybe you know, been sleepwalking through life. You're privileged. You don't really understand that. I probably would have rationalized it in my head a bit. But for Nikki to say it and then in the same conversation discuss her own experience of racism, and then to know that she's going through it right now with them calling her by her government name
Right.
and bringing up a whole birtherism thing to her. She's experiencing that right now. So for her to downplay her own experience that she's going through, and in essence, downplaying everyone else's experience for a group is just, it's just beyond pissing me off. It's like taking everything in me right now. But it's I don't understand that type of mindset, because I really do think that maybe she needs to like go home and just kind of like look in the mirror and see who she is and learn how to accept that before she tries to put herself on a national stage where she's representing others. Like when I look at Kamala Harris, I'm like, okay, she's representing the minorities in this country. She's representing women. Nikki Haley is not doing that. But at the same time, it's like she's insulting my intelligence, trying to make us believe that that's what she's doing. And she's clearly not doing that.
Would you say it's parallel or similar to what Lindsey Graham is doing with trying to marginalize LGBTQ when we know he is part of the community? I mean, I would imagine it gives people in the LGBT community that kind of feeling too, or that kind of anger to see somebody who's denying something they are, and then
Yeah.
on top of it, trying to hurt the very community they're a part of. Do you see that as the same thing with Nikki?
Oh yeah, it's a whole gang of them over there on the Republican side. Lindsey Graham, you could look at him. Tim Scott, you could look at him. There's a whole gang of them over there. They are going to sit there and say that their own experiences is not real, and because their experiences that they want to deny that for everyone else as well. At the end of the day, you have to be going home and you have to be absolutely miserable. How do you walk around and lie to yourself every day, all day, 24/7? And then you have to go on television and enforce that lie. Like, there's no way you could be happy like that. And I really do believe that that's why they're single. Like, there's no way that they can continue that lie with other people being that intimate with them. That you can't do that. These
But
people are it's a whole gang of them over there on the Republican side. And I don't know how they get to that point in their mind to where they hate themselves so much that they spew it out onto everyone else, because it really is an internal hate that they are just putting out externally into the world onto others, because it's something within themselves that they don't like, it's something within themselves that they can't deal with, it's something in themselves that they just can't accept for whatever reason that is. But it's not for me to deal with, that's for them to figure out how to deal with, and they need to do that pretty quickly because you don't get younger.
I think this is a good experience for the people who listen to the Rational Boomer podcast or watch the Rational Boomer podcast, seeing Old Soul, the calm, sensitive, compassionate woman, getting pissed off. I'm just waiting for you to go to the shoe.
I would love to talk to Nikki Haley, just have a conversation with her, but I'm not the type of person that she would want to talk to.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the thing is, you're the exact opposite kind of person they want to talk to. If they get
Mhm.
somebody in a yelling match, they love that. But if they've got somebody calm, spewing facts that they can't respond to, it drives them nuts. It takes them out of
Yeah.
their realm. And yeah, you're
Mhm.
right. Nikki doesn't want to talk to you. And I'd be afraid for Nikki if that were ever to happen, because
Yeah.
you're a,
She's definitely a broken person. She just, she was able to mask it. But there isn't, and they should know this through Trump. You can, and even Mike Johnson, you can mask your insecurities, even Ron DeSantis, you can mask that all day, every day. But it's so hard to mask that on a national stage.
yeah.
With that many eyes on you, with so many people targeting you, if you're not confident and you're not secure within yourself, then that brokenness, the only thing they're going to do is take your brokenness and they're just going to shatter it. And right now, I'm watching them shatter her day after day after day. And typically, I would feel some kind of like empathy for someone like that, but I don't, because I think that's what she needs.
Well, and if
Um,
people want a perfect illustration of that, that power couple down in Florida who's all against LGBTQ, and then we find out that they got some threesomes going, and he gets kicked out. Even the Republicans kicked him out. That's how bad that motherfucker is.
yeah.
So,
And I mean, she's Moms for Liberty. What the? And speaking of Moms for Liberty in Florida, you know how they like to ban books?
yeah.
Did you see that they're banning the dictionary?
Oh
I
God,
think
that's a
it was
horrible book.
there's two encyclopedias, and I don't know how many the sources it is, but I believe one. And the books Ripley's Believe It or Not, they're banning those too.
Wow. Yet,
Now, I don't know what the dictionary has to do with it, because if there's a word, people can just look it up on their phone these days. So banning the dictionary, the thesaurus, and all, the encyclopedia, like, I don't get that. But okay, have fun. Same thing with Ripley's Believe It or Not. Like, you don't have to like read a book. You can literally like go on YouTube and watch episodes of it. But you don't want to poison those children's minds out there with these freaks, I guess, and these evil dictionaries.
well, there's a lot of words in that dictionary. There's penis, there's vagina, there's pedophilia. It's all in that book. So yeah, you got to shut that down. Um, and
I never
yeah,
thought I'd see the day when you banned a dictionary.
well, tell me how many kids even use a dictionary anymore? I mean, when I was a little kid, somebody
Yeah.
would come pounding on your door trying to sell you encyclopedias, a big
Hmm.
old section of 15 books of
Yeah.
an encyclopedia. It was basically an analog internet, is what it was, because we didn't
Hmm.
have the internet back then. People bought them. And of course,
Yeah.
half the time they were wrong, they were out of date, they had to be updated. It was a whole scam. But
Yeah.
nobody reads an encyclopedia anymore. Nobody reads a dictionary anymore. I mean, fuck,
Mm-mm.
I don't have to read a dictionary. As I type in whatever I type in, it notifies me, no, you spelled that fucking wrong. Here's the right way. Boom. And so it's
You type it in. I use my voice note when I'm looking up something.
my wife does too, and I've just never got accustomed to it. I just type it in. I'm old school, if you will. Just because I'm old, man. I'm fucking old. Well, old soul, I thank you for coming on. It's always enlightening, and I always learn a lot more than if I just do it myself, because you know a lot more, and I appreciate that, and I know the listeners do too. So, thank you for coming on this week, as you become a weekly occurrence, and we love it.
It's fun.
Thank you. Yeah,
It's
it is
fun.
fun. You
It's
make
really
me.
fun. I don't know that email that you read for the person that wanted to come on after. Don't be scared. It's
Yeah, no,
fine. You're
it's
gonna have
fine.
fun. It's gonna go by quick.
Yeah, it goes by quick. It won't hurt, just a little pinch, like they do in the doctor's office. But other than that, you'll
Yeah.
be good. You'll be good. All right, old soul. Thank you for coming in. For those listening, I hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.